Welcome to the Podcast Lab, your go-to space for raw conversations, curious questions, and inspiring stories from around the world. Whether you're here to learn, laugh, or just listen in, this is where ideas take shape and voices come alive. Ready to dive into fresh perspectives and thought-provoking discussions? Let's get started. This is the Podcast Lab. Subscribe now and never miss an episode.
Welcome back to
Today
the
we're
deep
tackling
dive.
something a lot of you've been asking about. Trauma. Specifically, how it kind of sneaks into relationships, and how couples can figure out how to heal together. You know, we had a really detailed podcast script from a listener on this, and they're looking to really grasp those core concepts and get some get some actionable insights without getting totally overwhelmed by the whole thing.
Makes sense. It can be a lot.
Yeah. So today we're gonna uncover how even those little almost unnoticeable traumas can really have a big impact, how partners can really be there for each other, through that whole healing process.
What's so interesting is we're not just talking about those big life-changing events, everyday things like a tough childhood, or even just like a really bad breakup, like a really bad breakup. It shapes how we connect. It shapes how we connect.
That makes a lot of sense, and the script really points out that trauma, it's not like a one-size-fits-all thing. It's different for everyone.
Absolutely.
For everyone.
What might be super traumatic for one person, might not even bother someone else. It all comes down to how each of us processes and stores those experiences, in our brains and bodies. And that, of course, plays a huge role in how we react and behave in our closest relationships.
Okay, so let's get into some specifics. The script points out that trauma can pop up in relationships in a few pretty common ways, like difficulty trusting, difficulty fear of abandonment, a fear of emotions that are easily triggered, and even attachment issues.
So like those past experiences, they create a blueprint for how we do relationships. If you've been hurt before, especially romantically. It makes sense to be a little more guarded, cautious the next time around. That past betrayal can make it really hard to open up, to be vulnerable, even with someone who's proven themselves.
It's like a self-preservation thing.
Exactly. And that fear of abandonment, and that fear of so powerful, it can lead to some pretty extreme behaviors, like clinging to your partner or pushing them away to avoid getting hurt again.
It's like that whole once bitten, twice shy, but way deeper emotionally.
And this is where it gets even more interesting. The script talks about how trauma can actually create roadblocks to intimacy and connection. Those crucial parts of any strong relationship.
Because if you're always on edge, always worried about getting hurt, it's hard to let go and just connect with your partner.
Trauma can make it so hard to be present and vulnerable with someone. Think about it. If you've gone through trauma, your brain might always be looking for danger. Makes it almost impossible to relax and enjoy those simple moments of connection. It's like trying to enjoy an amazing meal while sitting on a wobbly chair, too busy worrying about being safe, to really appreciate the experience.
And I bet that always being on alert, that hypervigilance the script is exhausting.
Imagine always being on guard, even at home. That's what hypervigilance is like for so many people. Their nervous system is stuck in overdrive. It's hard to let their guard down. It's hard to let their guard down. Joy and peace of really connecting, and it takes a toll, not just on the person, but on the whole relationship.
So we're seeing how these past traumas, they create all these challenges in relationships. Trust, intimacy, and even just the way couples talk to each other.
And don't forget the impact on how you see yourself. The script points out that trauma can really hurt self-esteem, leading to feeling unworthy, even self-sabotage in relationships. It's like trauma whispers these negative things in your head. Things like you're not good enough, you're not lovable, or even you'll just get hurt again.
Hearing those messages on repeat in your head.
And the thing is, when we start to believe these things, it can become like a self-fulfilling prophecy. We start acting in ways that prove those thoughts right, even if they're not true.
A vicious cycle. A vicious cycle.
And one that's tough to break.
This is heavy stuff, but I'm already seeing how understanding all this, these underlying dynamics, can be so valuable.
Totally. Awareness is the first step. Once you see those patterns, you can start to understand the why. You can start to understand certain behaviors behind both your own and your partner's. And that understanding leads to compassion, and then to healing.
That's a great point, because the script doesn't just leave us hanging with all these challenges. It actually gives us some solid advice on how couples can support each other on that, road to healing.
The big takeaway here is that healing takes time, patience, and effort from both people to create a safe space in the relationship.
So where do you even begin? The script talks about open communication being a crucial
But it's more than
first
just
step.
talking. It's about truly listening without judgment, creating an environment where both partners feel safe to share their fears, their vulnerabilities, without being criticized or dismissed.
And I imagine for someone who's been really hurt, that feeling of safety is everything.
It is. It takes courage to be vulnerable, especially when you've been hurt before. And remember, healing doesn't happen overnight. Overnight.
It's a process.
Yeah, journey with, ups and downs.
So patience and
understanding.
Both partners need to know that setbacks are normal, and it's important not to take those moments personally.
Exactly. It's about offering support. It's about encouragement. No judgment. No blame. No judgment.
The script also mentions something. Learning about trauma together. It's like going beyond your own experiences, getting into the science behind it all. Maybe read some books or watch documentaries.
What's cool about that is it empowers both. When you understand what trauma does to your brain, your psychology, you can start to make sense of your partner's behaviors in a whole new way. It takes away some of the mystery and replaces it with compassion and understanding.
It's like creating a shared language, a common ground for understanding something that can feel
precisely. And that understanding can be really powerful in building connection.
Speaking of understanding, the script really pushes boundaries as another key thing for making a safe and supportive relationship.
This is where a lot of couples stumble. Boundaries aren't about control. Boundaries aren't about creating safety and predictability. It's about respecting each other's needs and limits. Knowing that what feels safe for one person might not feel safe for the other, especially with past trauma.
It's about honoring those differences and working together to create a relationship that feels secure for both of you. And the script encourages both individual and couples therapy, like a valuable tool for healing.
Therapy gives you this structured, supportive space to explore those deeper wounds, to figure out their impact, and to learn how to cope in healthy ways. It's like having a guide. To navigate all the complexities of trauma and how it affects relationships.
It's like investing in your emotional and relational fitness. You go to the gym to work on your physical body, and therapy strengthens your emotional well-being and the health of your relationship.
I love that analogy. I love that analogy.
So we looked at how past traumas can really affect relationships, but we've also highlighted those first steps toward healing. Open communication, patience, learning together, setting boundaries, and getting professional help. But what about those specific strategies and techniques couples can use on a daily basis to work through those challenges and build a stronger foundation?
This is where the script brings in Dr. Name. A trauma They've got years of experience with couples facing these same challenges, and they share some expert insights. One of the biggest things Dr. Name talks about is consistency. For someone who's experienced trauma, predictability and reliability are huge for rebuilding trust. It's about showing up when you say you will. It's about being consistent in what you say and do, and proving that you're someone they can really count on. Like if someone's world has felt unpredictable and unsafe, having that steady, reliable person there can be so grounding.
Think like building that solid foundation. By being consistent, you're basically saying, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not relying on me. And that message over and over can start to break down those walls of fear and distrust. It's about proving through your actions, not just words, that you're a safe and trustworthy person.
And Dr. Name also gives some practical communication tips. They recommend using I statements to express your needs and feelings without making your partner defensive.
So instead of saying, you always do this, which can sound accusatory, you'd say, I feel hurt when this happens. It's about owning your own emotions. It's about owning your own emotions, which can be really triggering for someone with a trauma history.
I statements shift the focus from blame to a way of saying, this is how your actions affect me. Which opens the door to empathy and a better conversation.
Such a subtle shift. But I bet it makes a huge difference in how couples communicate, especially about touchy subjects.
And Dr. Name also reminds us to celebrate those small wins. Healing from trauma isn't a straight line. It's got ups and downs. So it's super important to acknowledge and celebrate every step forward, no matter how tiny.
Because even those little bits of progress can be huge for someone dealing with trauma.
Totally. It's about recognizing the effort and courage it takes to step outside your comfort zone, to choose trust, By celebrating those small wins, you're not only acknowledging their progress, you're also reinforcing their commitment to healing.
It's like cheering them on every step of the way.
Exactly.
Reminding them they're not alone. Reminding them they're not alone.
Here's another important point Dr. Name brings up physical comfort and safety, especially for those whose trauma involves violations of physical boundaries. It's about checking in with your partner. It's about making sure they feel safe and respected when it comes to touch and physical intimacy.
That's so important.
Because we often think of trauma as just emotional, but it can be really physical too. Certain touches, movements, certain sounds, can trigger flashbacks or anxiety. So it's essential to be sensitive to those triggers and create an environment where your partner feels safe and in control.
It's about open communication, respect, and honoring each other's needs. It's realizing that what might feel totally normal for one person could be really triggering for someone else. And that awareness makes a huge difference in creating a truly safe and loving dynamic.
And lastly, Dr. Name emphasizes empathy as the foundation for healing. It's about putting yourself in your partner's shoes, understanding their pain, even if you haven't been through the same thing. It's about creating a space where both partners feel heard and valued.
Because at the end of the day, isn't that what we all want in a relationship? To feel understood and accepted, to feel understood and ourselves we might be ashamed of or afraid to show.
You're so right. Empathy is like the antidote to shame and isolation. It's about saying, I see your pain, I hear your story, and I'm here with you. It's about creating a connection that's deeper than the trauma. A connection built on understanding, compassion, and love. You know, this script doesn't just offer advice. It shares real life stories of couples who have faced these challenges and come out stronger. These stories are so powerful because they show us that healing isn't just a concept that's happening for real couples every day. They show us that with commitment, communication, and compassion, it is possible to overcome those hurdles and build a truly strong relationship.
I'm excited to hear about some of these stories. One that really stood out was about Sarah. Sarah had a rough childhood that made it almost impossible for her to trust anyone, even Alex, who obviously loved her deeply.
What's so inspiring about them is that Alex didn't try to force Sarah to open up or tell her her fears were silly. He saw that she needed space and respected her boundaries, all while being a steady and reliable presence in her life.
So he met her where she was at emotionally and waited for her to feel safe enough to open up.
Exactly. And over time, that consistency and support chipped away at Sarah's walls. She started to feel safe enough to let her guard down, to take a chance on love, and their relationship blossomed because of it.
That's beautiful.
It really is.
It shows the power of patience, understanding, and creating that safe space for someone to heal at their own pace.
Absolutely. And then there's Maria and James. Maria was carrying the weight of a past traumatic relationship, and it was affecting her current relationship with James. Even though he was nothing like her ex.
It makes sense, though. Like, those old hurts can change how we see all our relationships, even the healthy ones.
Even the healthy
ones. And what's important here is that James didn't dismiss Maria's. He understood they were real based on her past and actively tried to create a sense of safety and transparency in their relationship. So he was proactive in building that trust and showing her through his actions that he was different.
They went to therapy together. They went on trust-building exercises. And James was always open and honest about what he was doing and honest about what he was doing.
It sounds like a lot of work.
It was a process, for sure. It was a process. But Maria started to feel safer, more secure, and their relationship could move forward without that shadow of past trauma.
That's amazing. Their story highlights the power of communication, vulnerability, and facing those tough emotions together.
It's a reminder that even deep-seated fears can be overcome with the right support and a shared commitment to healing. These stories are so inspiring. And they're just a small glimpse into how couples are dealing with the challenges of trauma and finding healing and connection. They give us hope and remind us that even when things are tough, love can thrive and relationships can grow.
It's amazing, right? It's not just surviving. It's like they come out even better on the other side.
They find this deep intimacy and connection they might not have had without going through those challenges together.
It's like going through a fire together makes your bond unbreakable. It makes you come out stronger, tougher, and you really appreciate the relationship more.
That's a big takeaway from this script. That's a big takeaway. The power of healing together. The power of relationships can be so supportive. But it takes effort. And being willing to have those hard conversations.
So for our listener who wants to use this in their own relationship, what's the most important thing to remember? Where should they start?
Well, like we've been saying, it starts with understanding. Recognizing that trauma is a real thing. It's a real thing. And it can show up in ways we don't expect.
So be curious about your own experience.
And how they might be affecting how you act in relationships. And then it's about talking to your partner. It's about openly and honestly. Creating that space where you can both be vulnerable without feeling judged.
Because if you want to be really close, you have to be vulnerable. It's about letting your partner see the real you, even the messy parts, and trusting that they'll still love and care for you.
That's beautiful. And if those conversations are too hard or scary, remember that getting help from a therapist is a good thing. It's a sign of strength. It's a sign of strength. A therapist can give you the tools and strategies to work through those tough spots and guide you toward healing and growth.
Like having a relationship coach, someone to help you build that strong foundation and get ready for anything life throws your way.
And don't forget that every journey starts with one step. What can you do today to make things safer and more understanding with your partner?
That's a good question to think about. Maybe it's having an honest conversation, setting a boundary that protects your needs, or even just learning more about trauma and how it affects us.
Any act of courage, any bit of empathy, any step toward being vulnerable, it all makes a difference in the relationship.
It's really inspiring to think about that. How even the smallest things can have We've talked about a lot today. The nature of trauma, how it affects relationships, and those key steps toward healing and growth.
And we've seen how strong people can be, and how powerful love and connection are. Even when things are really hard, there's always hope, always a way to heal, and always a chance to build even better relationships.
This has been such an insightful and encouraging conversation. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into trauma and relationships. Don't forget, you're not alone. Don't forget, you're not alone, and there's help out there if you need it.
Wishing you all the best on your own journey toward healing and connection.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.